Okay, so many people are going to be shocked that they're going to get this simple math problem wrong. Now, without using a calculator, what you need to do is figure out what negative x squared minus x is equal to. But we have a big hint here, and that is x is equal to -1. So these x's right here are effectively -1. So what you need to do is figure out the entire value of this expression. Okay, so once again, no calculators, but we do have a multiple choice question, and let's take a look at our answers. So A is 0, B is 1, C is -1, and D is -2. All right, so go ahead and put your answer into the comment section. I'll show you the correct solution in just 1 second. Then, of course, I'm going to solve this problem step by step and really highlight some very common errors that students make in algebra. But before we get started, let me quickly tell you who I am. My name is John, and I have been teaching middle and high school math for decades. And if you're frustrated with math, or if you really want to understand the subject, then check out my math help program at tcmathacademy.com. You can find a link to that in the description below. And if this video helps you out, or if you just enjoyed this content, make sure to like and subscribe, as that definitely helps me out. Okay, so once again, here is our problem, and we're not going to use calculators. So the type of problem this is called in mathematics or algebra is called evaluating. Okay, so we're going to evaluate this expression for this value. Okay, so effectively, all these x's right here are going to become -1, and then we need to use our basic math skills to do all this number crunching and determine which is the equivalent value. All right, so let's go and take a look at the answer. The correct answer is A, 0. Now, if you got that right, well, you definitely get a happy face and an A plus. And if you're like, hey, Mr. U2 Math Man, something went wrong, or I think you're wrong, I think the answer is another answer. Well, we're going to go ahead and get into the solution right now because it's very likely that you made this very common mistake. And there's not just one mistake here, there's a few. So let's go ahead and get into it. And the first thing that we want to realize is we're dealing with an evaluating type of problem. So this thing right here in algebra or mathematics, the best way to describe this is call it an expression, okay? So like x squared is expressing something. Now this is an expression, but if I have x squared is equal to 4, this is an equation. If I have 2x, that's an expression, but if I have 2x is less than 10, that's an inequality. So in math, we need to kind of, describe things correctly. And if you just got a bunch of numbers or a bunch of variables with no equation sign or inequality sign, well, effectively what you have is an expression like x plus 1. That's an expression. Now, what we're trying to do here is evaluate this expression. All right, so this is a real important word. I'll talk about this more in a second. But we want to evaluate this expression for this value, which effectively means we're going to plug in a -1 for these x's and then do all this number crunching and determine the correct value. Now, if you are a math student and you encounter a problem like this, the worst thing you can do if you don't know how to do the problem is to leave this thing blank. All right, so never feel bad about guessing. And some of you are like, hey, Mr. U2 Math Man, I am a certified professional math guesser. Well, I was that way, especially back in the early 1980s when I was in high school. I was like a total expert at finishing math tests in like 5 minutes because I'd be like, all right, I think I'm just going to select B for all the answers or just put in some number. Now, that is not a good strategy. Of course, my grades reflected those things. But as a math teacher, I can tell you right now, you don't want to see students leave a question blank, all right? So math teachers want you to pass a test even if you get lucky. So some of you right here might be saying, all right, well, I think what I'm going to do, because this is -1, you understand the question. So you're going to kind of plug in this -1 for these x's. Now I'm going to try to kind of duplicate or reconstruct some very common type of mistakes. Now there's a ton of different type of mistakes that students make, but again, when it comes to evaluating expressions, especially when there's a negative value involved in powers, a lot of students get these type of problems wrong. All right, so some of you might say, well, I have a -1 here. This is negative, so I'm just going to maybe think of this as like a -1 squared minus like a 1. okay? So I can tell you right now, if you understand algebra and math and you're like, hey, Mr. YouTube Math Man, this is the wrong setup. Well, it is the wrong setup, but if you set this problem up, in other words, if you plugged in -1 into this expression in some sort of manner like this, well, this again is a very common misunderstanding in terms of evaluating a number into an algebraic expression, especially when there's negative values involved. So you might be saying, well, I didn't do this right here. I did something different, or I set it up correctly and still got the wrong answer. Well, again, there is more than just one mistake that people make with these type of problems. Okay, so I'm really trying to kind of get you interested in the rest of this video. So let's go ahead and talk about how to evaluate, and this is the word that you're going to see on a lot of math homework or test exams, quizzes. So evaluate. Okay, so this means, again, if I said if x is 2 and I wanted you to evaluate x squared, the expression x squared for x is equal to 2, well, what does that mean? Well, it means that we're going to replace this x with 2 and then do the math. So here is what a lot of students will do. So we're going to evaluate x squared for x is equal to 2. So you might just say, well, we're just going to replace the x with 2. So it's going to look like that, 2 squared, which of course is 4. Now that is correct, but that's not how you want to evaluate. So you might be saying, what are you talking about, Mr. YouTube Math Man? We got the right answer. I'm plugging in the number into for the variable. I'm replacing the variable with the number and then doing the math. Well, there is a big thing that's missing here, and I'm going to tell you kind of a secret, or not really a secret, but something that if you do this, when you evaluate a variable expression with a number, it's really going to minimize your errors. All right, so here is x is equal to 2, and we're going to evaluate for x squared. So what you want to do, no matter how easy the expression is always use parentheses, okay? Always use parentheses when you're plugging in values. So here, for example, to evaluate x squared for x is equal to 2, we're going to use parentheses 2 parentheses squared. So when you're going to replace a variable with a number, always use parentheses, okay? This is a big tip. And if you follow, what I'm saying, you're going to really reduce your errors. Okay, believe me when I tell you, I've probably graded well over 100,000 plus exams, quizzes. You get the idea. And I'm really not. Well, I think I'm of course exaggerating a bit, but it's a lot. And through the decades, you see these trends over and over again. And those students that really do plug in a or use parentheses when plugging in a numeric value into a variable expression, reduce their errors. Okay, so that's tip number 1. Now, the second thing that you have to understand is the correct order of operations. Now, a lot of you might be saying, hey, Mr. YouTube Math Man, I totally get this. Don't waste my time because this is like basic middle school, elementary level math. I can tell you right now, I've seen like Algebra 2 and pre-calculus students, even college level students, make order of operation mistakes. Okay, so you really got to understand the order of operations. And when you have a math problem with more than one mathematical operation, so an operator in math, it's things like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, powers, things like this, right? So when you have a problem that involves more than just one mathematical operator, well, then you need to follow the correct order of operations. Okay, so this is a checklist and it goes from left to right. And for those of you that are studying basic math and never seen this before, I'm going to give you a little mnemonic, a little memory aid here. So that is, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. One more time, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Now, I don't know what Aunt Sally did, but we thank her for her contribution to mathematics. Now, let's go ahead and get into this PEMDAS. Okay, so this is a checklist. We're going to follow this from left to right. So the first thing that we're going to do is anything that has parentheses, or if we see parentheses in our problem, we're going to do that math first. So it's not just parentheses, it's also these type of brackets like this, or these kind of squiggly brackets. These are called grouping symbols. Okay, so in math, I can group things together. Like, so for example, if I have 2 times 10 divided by 3, I can do this problem, or I can group the 2 and 10 together with parentheses. Okay, then I can put brackets around this entire thing. And the way this works is you're going to do the innermost parentheses first. So if you have a math problem with parentheses and brackets and outside brackets, always go to the innermost parentheses first, do that, and then work your way out. Okay, so that's what P stands for. Again, that's parentheses. Now the E is exponents, but you could basically think of this as powers. So if you have like 2 to the third power, this little 3 up here, this number in the top right of this power is called the exponent. And this means take 2 and multiply it by itself 3 times. So 2 times 2 times 2, of course, is 8. All right, now sometimes a problem will not have parentheses and sometimes it will not have powers. But if you do have parentheses and powers, you got to do it in this particular order. Okay, so now comes one of my favorite things to explain, and this is one of the most common mistakes in math. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and see how well you understand the order of operations. So what is the answer to this problem? 10 divided by 2 times 5. So without a calculator, go ahead and put your answer to this problem into the comment section. All right, so if you answered in the following manner, if you're like, all right, well, the order of operations, matter of fact, I'm going to tell you what these letters stand for. This means multiplication, this is division, this is addition, and this is subtraction. Okay, so you might be saying, all right, Mr. YouTube Math Man, I think you're going to do the multiplication next because that's what comes next in PEMDAS, right? So we're going from left to right. So we're going to do multiplication here. We have division and multiplication. I'm going to do the multiplication because it comes before the division. So you might be thinking, well, this is 10 divided by 2 times 5, which of course is 10. So the answer is 1. Well, that is incorrect. Now, I know a lot of you are not happy with that situation. Like, what are you talking about, Mr. YouTube Math Man? You tell me one thing, now you're telling me another thing. Well, the actual answer here is the following. Okay, so I'm going to leave this and show you the correct approach. Okay, so the correct answer is the following. So 10 divided by 2 times 5, what we have to do first is the division. Okay, so 10 divided by 2 is 5. 5 times 5 is 25. So 25 is the correct answer. Okay, so if you knew that and you're like, oh, I knew the answer is 25 because what we have here is a problem that has both division and multiplication. So the way this checklist actually works right here is that you're going to do multiplication or division next, whatever you see first from left to right. So in this problem, we have both division and multiplication. So we have to now ask ourselves, what do I see first from left to right? We see the division, okay, not the multiplication. So that's what we have to go and do 10 divided by 2 first, right, which of course is 5, and then we'll finish up with the multiplication. All right, so A and S stand for addition and subtraction, and they work the same way. Okay, so now that you understand how to evaluate a number into a variable expression, and we did a quick review of the order of operations, what we need to do is kind of put this all together and figure out the answer to this problem. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and give you another opportunity to figure this out. Okay, so before I do this problem, again, don't use your calculator. Let's see if you can do this thing again. Now, what you're going to do is get a piece of paper out, a pencil, and always use pencil. Don't use pen when you're using math or when you're doing mathematics because you want the ability to erase. So unless you have an erasable pen, but I'm not a big fan of those. But anyways, so let's go ahead and have you use parentheses, okay? Plug in -1 for this x right here, this x and this x. Again, use parentheses, and then think about PEMDAS, the order of operations, to simplify this expression. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this right now. So x is equal to -1, and what we're going to do is plug in this -1 for these x's over here. Again, this is evaluating this expression for this numeric value. All right, so here we go. So x is equal to -1. We're going to plug in for this and this x right there using parentheses. So I pretty much kind of explained to you how to do the problem. So let's see if you can kind of do this simple math, but you got to be very disciplined here and think about the correct order of operations. All right, so let's go ahead and start. So x is equal to -1. So negative x squared minus x is, when you set this up correctly, okay, using parentheses, it's going to be negative. This x in parentheses is a -1, parentheses -1. So this negative sign is outside of this x. Okay, this confuses a lot of students. They're like, well, this thing already has a negative, so maybe this is just like -1 this way, -1 squared. Okay, that is incorrect. You have to replace this x right here with -1, but we need this negative sign outside of that expression. All right, so again, if you were confused about this, I'm highlighting this matter because a lot of people get confused with evaluating, especially when there's negative values involved. Okay, so here we go. So x again, we're going to replace with -1 inside parentheses. So negative parentheses -1 squared minus parentheses -1. Again, we have another negative sign here, so we have to be very careful. So in math, in general, when you're working with positive and negative values, you got to be super careful, especially with those negative values. All right, so let's go and take the next step, which of course is having you quickly subscribe to my YouTube channel. Now, I definitely need your help to continue to grow on YouTube. Now, I've been on YouTube for like 14 years, but I have not been posting during that time. I mean, I set up my channel 14 years ago, and I really have a lot of regret. Okay. Now, I have a lot of regret because I think back and I say to myself, boy, if I would have really been putting in a lot of effort way back in those early days, my YouTube channel would be far, far, along. And I'm pretty happy with, where I'm at right now. I have like over 100 million views and like 629,000 subscribers at the time of this video, maybe like 630,000 by the time I post this thing. And I am very grateful for that. Okay. But a lot of this kind of success came when I really started taking YouTube seriously and trying to get better at it, really trying to provide a lot of content. And that was maybe like 6, 7 years ago. Now I'm telling you all of this because some of you may have regret about learning mathematics. Okay. Or you might be saying, hey, you know what? I want to get better at math, but maybe you do a little bit here, a little bit there. Well, I'm going to just tell you, just like YouTube, mathematics is no different. You have to immerse yourself in something for a long period of time to get success. Okay. And learning math or being successful in mathematics is no different than YouTube. So, anyways, my whole channel is all about trying to make math clear and understandable, and I'm trying to reach as many people as possible. So I definitely need your support. And the best way to support this channel is to simply hit that subscribe button and hit that bell notification as well so you can get my latest videos. Now, if you need to learn more algebra or more math beyond this, check out my full main math courses. You can find links to those in the description of this video. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the rest of this problem. So we need to be thinking about PEMDAS. Okay, so here now is our numeric expression. So we went from an algebraic expression or a variable expression. This is what this thing right here would be called. And we evaluated this variable or algebraic expression for x is equal to -1. Now we have a numeric expression. This is still an expression. So this entire thing is trying to express itself. It's like, yes, I'm equal to one number. Can you tell me what number that is? Well, we need to follow the correct order of operations. So let's go and do that right now. All right, so do we have any parentheses? Yes, we do. We have these parentheses, but is there any mathematical operations inside of those parentheses? In other words, do we have like -1 times 4 or -1 plus 6 or something like that? No, we don't have that. So yes, we have parentheses, but there's nothing to do, okay? So the next thing is, do we have any exponents? Do we have any powers? Yes, we do. Now, where is the power here, okay? The power is this right here, okay? -1 squared. This squared is acted upon the base of -1. Okay, not this squared is not acting upon this negative. So really what we have here, and again, I'm highlighting this because this is a real common misunderstanding in mathematics. So -1 squared means this. We're going to take -1 and multiply it by itself. So this is what's being squared. So we're going to, the next step, you figure out what the opposite or the negative of this is equal to. Okay, but we have to do the powers first, which is -1 squared. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it right now because the rest of the steps I think will be pretty clear. So -1 squared is equal to what? Well, that's -1 times -1, which of course is +1. So when we're thinking about the order of operations or PEMDAS, we can see this part right here, -1 squared, is equal to a positive 1, but we still have this negative sign right here. So this entire thing right now is equal to negative 1, okay, or the opposite of a positive 1. Okay, so you got to be super careful again when you are evaluating these expressions. So negative 1 minus a minus 1. All right, so let's go ahead and think about what we're going to do next. So we have PEMDAS, right? So we did our P and no parentheses, nothing to do inside those parentheses. Or now we have our E exponents, we did our powers, we did that step right here. So is there any multiplication and division? Now you might be saying to yourself, hey, Mr. YouTube Math Man, there's really no multiplication or division. Well, actually, technically there is, okay? This right here could be considered multiplication. So I'll show you that right now. Okay, so right here, okay, we can see basically the problem being finished. But let me explain this. So this is a subtraction operator. Okay, it's a minus sign. Whoops. So it's like this. So you could think of this as plus negative, but really this is a negative what? Well, it's not negative anything. It's really a negative 1. So a negative 1 outside of another negative 1 like this is a mathematical operation right here. This negative 1 outside of this or next to this parenthesis. Matter of fact, let me show you another example. If I have 2 parentheses or 2 parentheses 3, what does this mean? This means 2 times 3. So this is multiplication, right? So that's one way to think about this. So negative times a negative is a positive. Now, another way to think about this, and just kind of an easier way to think about it, is that when you have a subtraction sign, that's the same thing as the word opposite in math. Okay, so this is the opposite of a negative 1 or negative times a negative, which is positive. Okay, so now that we have taken care of our multiplication, we can finish this up because negative 1 plus 1 is 0. All right, now if you're like, no way, Mr. YouTube Math Man, you are right. I actually had a little bit of trouble with this problem. Well, don't feel bad, okay? Making mistakes is all a part of the process of learning mathematics. What you want to do is listen to your math teachers, or really kind of try to identify where your misunderstandings are so you can correct them, okay? Now, if you continue to evaluate variable expressions without using parentheses, well, you're going to make these type of errors, right? I'm just telling you right now, I've been doing this for a long time. So that's kind of point number 1 for this video. The second point is make sure you really understand the order of operations and you're thinking about PEMDAS, every step of the way, whether you're doing algebra or numeric kind of expressions, right? Simplify, or excuse me, using arithmetic to simplify a numeric expression. Okay, so I'm kind of stumbling and bumbling all over my words, but if you stuck with me this far, hopefully you learned something because that's the whole point to my videos. All right, so with all that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your math adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.